over here. This meeting is being live streamed. Got it. We are now streaming on Facebook. Let's just go confirm that. Let's see here. There we are. Okay. I love it. Welcome to Business Power Hour with Faith Mariah. I am not Faith Mariah, but I am Team Faith Mariah, here to host Business Power Hour for you today. Okay. I froze, I panicked, but we're good. I will let both of our guests, if you want to introduce yourselves, let us know a little bit about what you do. Today, we are talking all about virtual teams, outsourcing, and pros and cons and things to know all about that. And so if you want to let us know a little bit about you, what you do, how you help people, and what kind of, I know both of you submitted a free gift to offer to the community. So if you would like to tell us a little bit about your free gift, feel free to go ahead and do that as well.
Okay, sounds good. Do you want me to go first, or would you like?
Right ahead. Yep.
Okay, so hi everyone. I'm really excited to be back here. My name is Amira Irfan. I'm the business lawyer and entrepreneur behind aselfgrew.com, where we help entrepreneurs legally protect their businesses, either by working with me one-on-one or by simply downloading my done-for-you legal templates that have helped thousands of entrepreneurs. So I also have a free gift for you guys, which is a free legal guide to protect your online business. Now, after working as a lawyer for over a decade, trust me, I've seen a lot of business owners, including my own dad, getting sued for $90,000, and a lot of business owners making legal mistakes, not because they want to, but because of the things that they don't know. So I put together a legal guide that's going to walk you through the 3 most common legal mistakes that you definitely want to avoid in your online business. So I would love for you to grab it and let me know if you have any questions.
Awesome. Thank you. Rita, what about you? Oh,
sorry. Didn't realize I was muted.
I was like, no more tech problems.
Right. So my name is Rita Esther. I started my business back in 2015, just as a virtual assistant and website builder. I love all things marketing. Roughly 2018, 2019, my business I was so overwhelmed, and it just kind of took off. So then I expanded and created an agency, so that way it wasn't all just on me. And so now we are a team of 8, and we love to help online entrepreneurs launch, grow, systemize their online business. So we just take the heavy lifting off their plate so they can focus on what they love to do instead of getting caught up in all of the nitty-gritty details and all the things that they don't enjoy doing. And also, we do have a free resource if you'd like to download it. My website is delegateandaccelerate.com, and the download link is delegateandaccelerate.com/outsource, and it's a guide to help you to identify where you could use help outsourcing, and really how that can be cost effective for you.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I think that's like super helpful. As I mentioned, I'm Kelsey. I'm part of Team Faith Mariah. I was going to be on this panel either way today. So, but a little bit about me is that I do work on the team with Faith as an assistant. And I also have a business where I help people. I started out as a VA. And what I quickly realized is that there are a lot of people who want to hire a VA and don't know what they need to share with their VA in order to make that process successful. So that's kind of something that I do, is help people kind of streamline on the back end, get their systems figured out so that we know, okay, here is what we need to know on the back end. Here's what your team needs to know when you hire them. And the free gift that I have for you, I call my anxious millennial audit. And what it is I always joke, is that if people online don't know how to do business with you, they're not going to. Most of us are, we're busy, we're anxious, that sort of thing. And so if we have to guess about how to pay you, about how to work with you, we're not going to. So you can fill out the form. All of these will be sent out in the replay link. So make sure that if that's something you're interested in, we will send out the replay, and it's in our freebie base as well, including everyone else's links. And you can go on, sign up. I will send you a screen recording of your business and your online presence as far as things that maybe could be improved. So as far as online business goes, delegating, all of the things, what would you guys say are the first steps that need to happen before someone starts to hire a team or an agent?
In my opinion, it's really identifying like basically there's one of two things that you need to hire for. It's something that either you don't know how to do and it's going to take you forever to figure it out, or this is really common with the people that I work with, is something that you do know how to do and it doesn't move your business forward, and it's busy work that keeps you feeling productive without actually doing anything strategic. And that, in my opinion, is the most important thing to hire out. And so even for me in my business, I love doing graphic design. I absolutely adore it.
Mhm.
However, I've gotten to where I realize that I will get lost in figuring out colors and fonts. And next thing I know, it's 8 hours later and I haven't done anything to grow my business. So it's not really a productive use of my time. And my clients find the same thing, whether it's writing or creating emails or being on client calls they don't need to be on, like just, shooting the breeze or whatever. So that's
Mhm.
my opinion. Find those two things. What do you hate to do? Hire for
Mhm.
that. And what do you pretend to be productive with? Hire out for that.
Yes, I think both of those are super, super important. What about you, Amira?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way I started with my delegation process was back when I was working full-time as a lawyer. I started my business. So time was very limited, but it did take me a little bit longer to start outsourcing and delegating because I'm a perfectionist by nature. So first thing is that you have to shift your mindset to not be a bottleneck in your own business, because I believe that I was one, because it took me year two, even though I made 6 figures in my first year of business, but I didn't start hiring until my second year. So that's one thing that you will have to first get into the mindset of hiring. The second thing is that definitely, like you mentioned, Kelsey, is to have systems in place. Like, what are you hiring for? Give the people the tools, the checklist, the standard operating procedures. And maybe because I'm a lawyer speaking, but I think these are tools and things that you need to inform the people that you're hiring what your processes and your systems look like, so that they can be successful in building that business or doing that task for you. So that's something that you need to do before you even start outsourcing, because otherwise you're setting them for failure and also setting yourself up for disappointment. And the other thing, the third tip I would mention is automating. So delegation is great, outsourcing is great, but I believe that the other thing that really helps scale my business to 6 and 7 figures is the fact that there's a lot of things that you could automate, right? So if you could get into the habit of doing that, that would definitely make things a lot more simpler and successful for you.
Yeah. And I'm going to actually just piggyback right off of that, because I feel like if people want to build a business, like some people start a business and they just want to work by themselves and they're fine with a certain level and that being as much as they can do and stopping there. But if that's not the kind of business you want, like you said, setting up those systems and processes way ahead of time, before you're even thinking about bringing people on, ask yourself, what process do I want to repurpose content? What process do I want to send an email or schedule something to my calendar? And having those things there and being really specific, because I'm gonna pull out my favorite analogy sooner than I had anticipated. But like, for instance, I always tell people, like, if I asked you to go to the store and bring back milk, what kind of milk are you bringing back? Are you bringing back 2%? Are you bringing back whole? Are you bringing back unsweetened almond milk? Are you bringing back macadamia nut milk? I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? So like, a situation that I've run into being on kind of both sides of this is a lot of people seem to think like, okay, yeah, I've got it written out, just like send this email. And it's like, okay, but we've got a lot of specifics. How do you want it titled? How do you like your language to look? All these kind of things. And it's just really important and it streamlines everything. And there will be bumps in the road, no doubt, but that's part of the process. But having something to go on to begin with, I think is a really, really huge help.
For
Absolutely.
sure. And there's software out there. One is called Tango. We can literally do what you do and it will take screenshots as you do it. So you
That
don't
is
have to manually anymore create your SOPs. Like, use this AI software to help you.
That's amazing. Thanks for that, because I didn't know about that one. What would, and we touched on this like a teeny tiny bit, but what would you both say are some of the biggest benefits of outsourcing? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no. Okay.
You look like you were ready.
Yeah, I was, because I would say that one of the ways that you build a successful business is by outsourcing, because the biggest benefit that I found was the freedom, the time, and the ability to be able to focus on the high level money generating tasks. Because like kind of what Rita mentioned, right? Like you sometimes will just get bogged down into the busy work. You may think you're being productive, and I was, but you just don't realize the output, the return on your time, right? So I feel like the biggest benefit is, first of all, freedom. I remember my first year of business when I was working like a crazy person with my full-time job. I went on my birthday trip, which my husband surprised me. But guess what? Didn't enjoy a single day of that trip overseas because I was working like a crazy lady. So that was one thing that I promised myself after that first year, that I would never put myself into that situation, because no amount of money, no amount of passion for business is worth that kind of like suffering that I felt internally, mentally, and physically, also that the toll that all this working hours takes on your body, right? So I believe that the freedom, the ability to be able to think like a CEO, because I don't want to work in the business, I want to work on the business. And you only are able to do that once you have a team, once you have a people that you could rely upon, so that you can think big, and that you could really just focus on those big, high performing tasks, or money revenue generating tasks, as I call them, to further grow and scale your business.
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And like Amira said, when you're working on your business and not in your business, you're seeing the big picture and you're making the moves that you need to make to grow your business. As far as the biggest benefits, Kelsey, that's what you were asking. I'm reminding myself, but as far as the biggest benefits in my mind, one of my old mentors once told me, and I think this came from a book that he read, and this is a weird analogy, but this is what he told me. Every day you're only given so many spoons. And some days you have 20 spoons, some days you have 6 spoons, some days you have 50, depending on how much sleep you got, how you feel, or whatever. But each spoon represents a decision. And as many of those as you use up, whatever you're given for the day, you're done. So sometimes it's 5, and you can only make 5 decisions, or you can only make 20 decisions. And then you get decision fatigue and you say, you know what, I'm done. I just want to take a nap. I just want to veg out and watch some reruns of Golden Girls or whatever. And so whenever you delegate, then you are no longer using up your spoons for something that's very, I guess, low priority, low importance in your business. Like, what color should I use for this? What time should I send this email? When should I schedule this social media post? What should I write about my next blog? As many of those spoons as you can delegate out, then it leaves your spoons for the most important things, which are the strategic moves. And what are you going to do? What's your plans? What's your goals? Like your team, your whoever you hire out, they can't put your goals on paper for you. They can't map out your next 90 days. They're not going to, decide what you're going to launch for your next course or product or whatever. That's something that only you as the business owner can do. And your team is there to help bring all that to fruition.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to go along with that too, there's the spoons that are the decisions that have to be made. And then there's the mundane tasks, right? Those nagging tasks of, did I do this? Did this thing get done? Did this one little piece of everything get done? Or did I respond to this email? And having a lot of those nagging tasks too, every single nagging task we have, or every decision we have to make, especially the ones that we sit on for too long, all of those are going to be things that drain our energy just slowly. It's like a paper cup full of water and you're just jabbing holes in it every time that you don't like have a teammate or somebody like that to help you.
I even found the same thing, for myself when it came to taking care of the housework.
Yes.
I work from home. My children are all grown and out of the house. I really have no excuse to need a housekeeper. However, I would forever put off doing the tubs and toilets because I hated doing it. And it would just like weigh on me.
There's
And
so
so
much mind drama. Yes.
it is. And so whenever I hire someone just to come in, all she does, literally tubs, toilets, dusts once every 2 weeks, cost me $50, best $100 I spend every month,
Mhm.
hands down, because it frees up that guilt and that, like you said, the mind drama.
Yeah.
And I just know it's done. I don't have to worry about it. If I have company coming over, I ask her to come early or whatever. And it's a game changer. That was a game changer.
Well, and you make actually a really good point because, and this is something that I saw Gianni is with us or was with us on Facebook. I don't know if she still is, but she talked about it in her stories as well about delegating those types of tasks. Having a team, like, yeah, we're talking kind of specifically about business teams, but all of those things you can consider part of your team, having somebody like, I have a dog and my dog goes out to the yard, right? And so I have somebody who comes and takes care of my yard every week to make sure that there are no landmines in my yard. And that's wonderful. And I love that. And so having these people, they're part of your team too. So it is really important because like we said, every decision, every nagging task is just one more thing that's just draining your energy. So I think that's a really good point. What would you guys say are some of the tips you have for finding the right talent for hiring, onboarding, and managing long term? What would you say is important?
Okay, so I'll start. I was giving Rita the chance this time, but okay, I'll start. One of the biggest tips that I would say is finding the right talent is to really make sure that you're interviewing. One of the things that I learned a long time ago is that during that interview process, and I think it was Alex Hormozy. I don't remember who I heard it from, but it was an interview I was watching on YouTube. And I remember it was a very good tip he gave. He said that whenever you're hiring, you always want to learn something from that interview. Maybe there's something that they do better than you, or maybe there's something that they add value. So when I'm interviewing, first of all, I'm also looking for skills, but I'm also looking for that personality fit. But there's what else is it that they're going to bring on that I don't already have, right? So that is essential. The second thing is that I always try to make sure that I have those checklists, those SOPs, the systems in place. So that way it's easier for them, the whole onboarding process. And the third tip that I would give from a legal standpoint, and you have no idea that how many business owners I've seen, including my own dad, make this legal mistake, is that they don't use a contract. You need to do a very good job, whether you're working with an agency, whether you're working with an individual, you need to have a contract in place to outline the scope of work, the payment terms, the late payment fees, everything that you're doing, so that both you and the person that you're hiring are on the same page, because a lot of issues and disputes happen because there is no contract, because there's no meeting of the minds. It's all like in your head. You thought that you explained it well to this person and this person got it, but they didn't, so you just want to avoid that drama. You want to avoid those headaches with having a proper legal contract in place. And even like my dad is guilty of this. This is before I became a lawyer, is that he trusted his friend to start growing his business, a freelancer, and that ended up, there was definitely some sort of a dispute, a not understanding, but that a person ended up suing my dad and the business for $90,000. So
Yeah.
I'm speaking from personal experience, and I'm speaking from thousands of other entrepreneurs that I help out on a weekly, monthly basis, that even do consults with me, are in the same shoes because they didn't use a contract. So you definitely want to follow these tips to make sure that the hiring process is smooth and clear. And think of it like you're a CEO, right? You are building this foundation for long term. So you're not just hiring one person today, maybe tomorrow it'll be 6 people, 10 people. So you want to have all these systems and processes and structure in place from the very beginning. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It makes excellent sense. And I'm really glad you shared that. So here's a follow-up question on that is, if you're hiring contractors, should both parties have their own contract?
No. So you only need one contract. You don't
Okay.
need two separate contracts for the
Right.
same.
That's, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you just need one contract. A lot of times the contractor would prefer to use their own contract. And if the client is okay with that, that's fine. Sometimes the client would prefer like when I'm hiring, obviously I being a lawyer, I prefer my own contract because it's more in favor of me, the person hiring than them. But generally speaking, all my legal templates are very fair, very neutral. But it doesn't matter whose contract that you use, as long as both parties agree to those terms and sign it.
That's good to know. Yeah, because I was like thinking about it and I'm like, you know, how would that work? But yeah, so like employees definitely have all that contract laid out. And then if it's a contractor, then you guys just kind of decide amongst yourselves, basically.
Correct. And it's so important in the contract, especially if it's a contractor, because in the beginning of your business, you might just be hiring contractors than employees, right? Because not everyone's going to right away start hiring employees because it's a lot more paperwork. But it's so important in that freelance contract or that independent contractor agreement that you both sign, that you identify that this is a contractor, not an employee, because that could also later on bite you as the person hiring if you don't designate that. That's kind of what happened with my dad's situation too, that this person alleged that he was working as an employee rather than an independent contractor. So he was entitled to all these benefits, which he wasn't. But again, all of these disputes can come up if you don't clearly have a contract that's defining all of those statuses. It's very important from a legal standpoint and also for tax purposes too.
Yeah, so my background is actually in the hair industry, and that's one of the biggest things that like salon owners get in trouble for is not having their independent contractors set up properly, asking things they shouldn't, all that kind of stuff. But that's an aside. Rita, what would you say are some tips for finding the right virtual talent?
For me, I guess, obviously Amira comes from like a legal standpoint, and definitely Amira and I are like a yin and a yang for today's panel, because I'm way more like freewheeling, like, hey, if we just agree, like we're good to go. So I'm not even going to touch on that because I am the worst when it comes to all of those little niggly details. And thankfully now I actually have somebody on my team that takes care of those things, because that's not my zone of genius. But my number one tip when you're starting to hire out and to get help, I start small, like literally one thing. So the first thing that I personally hired for was for someone to help me organize my inbox and give me like a daily digest of what do I need to pay attention to, what decisions do I need to make, and delete all the rest. And that was the very first thing I hired for. Again, started very small. And now she is my online business manager. She is amazing. But just start small. Like, what is that one thing that you always put off? If your inbox looks like mine used to, with like 30,000 unread emails, start there. But just one project and then grow from there. Or if you were maybe in the middle of a launch and you need someone to build a sales page for you. So instead of hiring someone to redo your entire website, maybe just hire someone to build that one sales page. And if you like working with them, then talk to them about building a whole website. So just start small and grow from there. It's just like starting a diet or starting an exercise regime. You don't jump in and then all of a sudden you're bench pressing 500 pounds. You start off with like, doing a couple of curls. So same thing with hiring out.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great example, and something that maybe, well, before we go on to that, I will give my tip and then we can go on from that. But going kind of along with that is also understanding what you're wanting from the person, right? So I'm working with someone right now who had hired, for admin work. And as I'm phasing out of admin work, I was like, because one of the big challenges that we had working together was that there were no SOPs. There were no SOPs. It was, please send this email. And so I said, here's what I propose, as I'm phasing out of working with you, why don't I help you get your SOPs in order, help you, understand and like kind of see all of the things that you're asking for and how they need to be done so that you don't have to feel like you're like managing someone all the time, right? You can say, I need this thing done, and they know how you want it done. They know how it should happen. And so I think that that's a really important thing, is just being really clear on that and being really clear on what the other person offers. And kind of like bunging off of that, how would both of you approach scope of work? Like, what if you need a change in scope of work?
That's always
got some opinions.
So in my line of work, typically I help people with launches course, like most of my clients are course creators, they have memberships or whatever, and it's super easy to
Mhm.
exceed what you originally talked about. And so in general, if I've quoted somebody a project, I line out everything. This is this, and this. If you need additional, it will cost you X amount of dollars per hour. And whenever they ask for something outside of that scope of work,
Mhm.
either I will say, hey, that's not what we had talked about. I'm happy to do that for you. It's going to cost you this much. We think it's going to be about 3 hours. Or I might say, hey, that's outside of our scope of work. However, we can just take care of that for you real quick, no charge. But I let them know every time this is not what we agreed to. So sometimes they get a little freebie, but sometimes like if they ask for something bigger, then we have to talk about that, and that requires another invoice. But that is always, always, always with every client. And then some clients just have me on retainer where they get, 20 hours a month or 40 hours a month or whatever. And it's just like, hey, it just goes in that, in that time.
Okay. What about you, Mira? Do you have any feelings on scope of work, especially probably as it pertains to contracts and stuff?
Yes, that's a very, very important issue. And so scope of work is very important for both parties, right? Because you don't want to overwhelm your person that you're hiring, and they don't want to feel like they've been cheated off of and having to work this extra work. So both, I think it's really important, especially from my hiring perspective, that before I hire, I already have a checklist and of the things that I need this person to do. So we both are exactly on the same page, because written communication and verbal communication, I believe, is very, very important in the whole hiring process. So I will do my part to make sure that I have a checklist of the duties and the tasks and things that need to be done on a weekly, monthly, whatever it is that I'm hiring them for. For example, if I have my email customer service person, right? So she is only doing emails. I don't burden her with anything else. If there would be a time that she's evolving and growing into the business, then yes, we would have a discussion and we would revise the scope of work to include those additional duties, as well as have a fairly new compensation structure, right? So I make sure that I have it all in the contract. If it is time to go ahead and give her more additional work or something, then we will revise the contract, make the amendment. It's super easy, and then come up with the payment for the additional work. So what I have learned in many years of being in business is that I don't like to be honest, burden people with too much work outside of their duties, because I like to have multiple contractors who are specialized in their own little thing. So if there's a video editing person, then that's all they're doing. They're not doing social media for me. If there is an email or customer responding person, then they're just handling the email aspect of it. If it's a blog post writer, he or she is only doing blog post writing. They're not doing social media. They're not doing all these other ancillary tasks, which will overwhelm them. Which is also outside of their zone of genius, and then which just results in, again, them feeling like, oh, this is not part of my duties, and I don't like to do that. So I like to be very fair and very clear, because I feel like you as a hiring manager, it's very, very important that you have a duty to make sure that you're the person that you're hiring and you are both on the same page, and it's your job, because you're hiring them. You need to communicate clearly by written communication as well as verbally as to what that work is going to entail.
Amira, let me just say, if you're ever in the market to hire somebody new, because most of the people that come to me, they are in so much chaos. There is no
I know, I'm like liking the sound of this.
Right? There's nothing. They're just like, please help me. Here's everything I have. And it's like, make it make sense for me. So I know that there are people in the world like that like attracts like, and apparently I just attract chaos, because my clients are just they're not as well put together as you are.
No, I just like to be organized, because I think in like going back to SOPs, right? Like before, and I've had my growing pains too. Like I remember the first time I hired somebody to put together a blog post for me. There were things that I would review the blog post and I'm like, oh, you're missing this and this. And that's when it hit me that I can't blame them. I didn't do my part to provide a checklist, kind of like what you were saying, Kelsey, that there's so many ways to skin a cat, right? Like you go buy a milk, there's so many versions. And same way, like my blog post writing checklist may be very different than XYZ's, right? So it's my job to provide you that checklist, so that way we're both on the same page, because I can't expect you to be a mind reader. So, so those are things that I learned, in the very beginning of doing business. And that's when I made a habit. It's a hack. It's a habit that, hey, before you hire, you do your due diligence. You make sure you have your crap together, because otherwise there's going to be conflict, and you just don't want to have to go through that, because it's a headache, because that defeats the whole purpose of hiring them, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes too, because I've worked with a few people who have either only ever had maybe one assistant before, or they've
Yeah.
never had an assistant. And so I don't mind a project. I'm going to be honest. Like, I love when you're like, this is my business. And like, as long as it feels very collaborative and we're like, okay, here's what we can address. Here's what we can address, like, let's sort everything the way it needs to be, make a process, that sort of thing. So I don't actually have a problem with that, as long as everybody goes in with it, understand, like, on the same page about that. It's very important, I think, because otherwise you do either get out of the scope of work, or, the contractor starts being like treated as an employee, and that's never a good thing. And so I think as long as everybody's really clear about that, that's really important. And then you can kind of go from there. Like, if you have somebody who's willing to kind of come in, help you sort out your needs, and then you can be like, I need someone for this specific job, and then kind of like really get people into a specialty, that sort of thing.
Yes. And
Would
I've
you
learned, yeah, I'm sorry. And I've learned over the years, like, I remember when I first hired my virtual assistant, and this is a mistake I made. I thought that she could do everything, like, posting on social media, editing blog posts, creating graphics, and that's something you don't want to do. Like, I learned that you don't want to, even though she was qualified to do all of this, but it's just going to lead to overwhelm and chaos, and you're just not doing a good job as a CEO. So I've just realized that to segment it all, right? Like, okay, here's the video aspect, here's the blog post. So just this way, not everybody's kind of happy, and they're not feeling like, oh my God, I'm being pulled in so many different directions,
Yes.
So yeah, you don't want to overwhelm your people.
Agreed,
Yes,
100%.
absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I lost my list of questions here. And we kind of touched on it, or did you have something else to say, Rita? Were you starting to say? Oh, okay. I have to go to like different screens to read all the things. Here we go. So we kind of talked a little bit about some of the pitfalls, but what are some things, is there anything else that comes to mind that you feel like really make sure that you're a good match, that you work well together, and like how to just really have those good, like, collaborative type of relationships with your contractors?
All right, I'll go first this time. For me, it's honestly, maybe it's just because we're pretty booked. I'm very picky about the clients that I work with, and whenever someone reaches out to book a call, I have gone full on private investigator mode. I know what they do, what their business looks like, where they live, how many kids they have, all of that, because I want to, just like anybody else, if I'm working with someone closely, because, as a service provider, as a virtual team, we're working with you pretty closely. I want it to be somebody that I genuinely like, that I would hang out with if they weren't paying me to do so. And I think that if you're looking to hire someone, you should probably do the same thing. Like, who are they? Like, what are they doing in their spare time? Is this the kind of person that you want to have as part of your daily life? Because that's what you're hiring for. Whether they're just editing videos, or doing your social media, or managing your inbox, or are literally like your virtual assistant who is there with you all day to help you manage your business, this is an important hire. And if it's somebody who goes against your values, whatever they are, that's not going to work. It's just not. So if you wouldn't hang out with them in real life, you wouldn't hire them in real life, why would you hire them virtually? It's no different.
Absolutely. Well, and I feel like two things on that. I feel like, number one, having that kind of connection with them, or, feeling like they're a cool person, like your personalities are a good match, that sort of thing. I think it helps protect against that, oh, you're just a contractor attitude that some people kind of do have after a while. But also, I think it's really important from like a business values perspective as well. Like, someone that I'm working with right now is non-binary and most of their clientele are like LGBTQ plus. That's an important value for them. And they need to, when they hire someone else in to be their assistant, they need to make sure that is a value that this person has, because you wouldn't want somebody in there. I mean, somebody could come in and like sabotage things because they like didn't agree or whatever. And that's
Amen.
something you really want to avoid, so making sure you have that connection is really important. I feel like for both of those things, and for everybody, like a person who is a contractor, yes, like we're providing a service, but it's not like to put one person here and the other person there. You know what I mean? Like everybody should, I don't know. I feel like collaboration should be a really important part of it.
Let me just say, like in my real life, like, not online, there is a printing company that I go to, a local guy, for everything that I need printed, any print work I need, whether it's a poster or whatever. I live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. It's a community, a very large city. I have so many options. You know why I go to this guy in particular? Because I like him. He's fun. We will literally, if I see him out and about, we will hang out, we'll shoot pool, have a drink together. And I feel like you should feel the same way about anybody that you hire, the same places that you go to over and over again in your real life. There's a reason for that. And I want my clients to feel the same way. Like, of course I'm going to hire Rita. Who would have, like, no, I'm not going to go to anybody else. Right. And I want people to feel like that when they work with me and my clients. I legitimately like them as people. And if they happen to come to town, we are going to hang out. It's just going to happen.
I love that. I love that. What about you, Amira? Any thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, no, you guys shared some great tips. So the thing that is important for me is like definitely the skills, but the personality is very, very important, because I look at it this way, that all of these things that I'm outsourcing, at some point I've done those, like I've worn those hats, right? Multiple hats as a business owner. So I can teach someone to do the work. Like maybe they won't do it 100% like me, but 80% is good enough for me. So I can definitely teach you the skills, but if you don't have the personality match, then it's a recipe for disaster, right? So for me, someone like kind of like what you guys were saying, like collaborative, having that connection, someone that's willing to take initiative, right? Because I don't want someone who's just a follower. Like I'm not here to create followers, especially if I'm bringing you on my team, it's for long term. So I want to create more leaders, right? I want to create people that are willing to go the extra mile and come to me with solutions rather than problems all the time. So even a simple thing like an email response to a difficult customer, I don't want to be the one just telling you how to respond. I want you to come to me maybe with a proposed response, and then I can edit it, tweak it. So that's what I mean with problem solving, right? So I look for those kinds of things. And also really important is the representation of my brand, because I look at it this way: whether you are a contractor, whether you're an employee, you are a representation of me, what I stand for, my business, my mission, my values, and the customers that really trust me, right? So it's so important for me to make sure that you have those high values, the work ethics, all of those things, of course, come out in the interview, as well as some work samples that I look at before we hire. And I believe that it's a whole combination of all of these things which really make a difference.
Yeah, that's really incredible. Now, one final thing, and then I'll let you guys talk one more time about your freebies, just in case we had anybody jump in a little bit later. What would you suggest as far as interviewing tips? That's something we haven't really covered. I mean, I know like you can get a pretty good feel for somebody when you're talking to them, like if they're personable or if they have like, the type of personality that you're like, yeah, I can work with this person. But are there specific things that you think some people might leave out of interviews that they need to cover? Thoughts?
Yeah, so
You go. I'm sorry.
no, you go ahead, Rita.
No, I was just saying, you go.
Oh, okay. So first thing I do is like, and this is a very easy one for me. Okay. So whenever I posted a position, whether in my Facebook group or anywhere else in any other forum to hire, right? I will purposely put like a little test in there. Like we'll have our questions, but we'll also have a way for me to gauge that if you're really following attention, like following instructions or directions. So maybe a small thing I will ask you to do, maybe a respond to my email a certain way with a subject line so that I know already that if you are someone that's following directions carefully, is reading, or you're just someone who's just reading this job posting and just hitting apply, right? So that's for me, like a quick tip for me to filter out the ones that I know for a fact are not going to follow instructions. And I'm just going to, if they can't even read a job posting and follow a simple thing, then we're going to have a difficult time kind of communicating when I'm assigning them things, or I'm telling them to do things, or I'm trusting them to do things on their own. So the other thing is that in the interview, I always ask for samples. You don't have to have the exact experience I'm looking for sometimes, depending on what the job is. But if there is experience needed, like SEO, I definitely need you to have experience, for example, an SEO editor or someone that I'm hiring, then we look for prior work samples, because that will give me a very good idea about like, before I even do the interview, I will ask for all of these things so that I can review it and then shortlist the candidates that way. And then during the interview, I think asking the right questions is very important, right? Like just to kind of find out like what their experience has been like, what's their work ethic like. It's not necessarily just about the job, but also get to know them, because like you'll learn so much in that interview process if you just ask the right questions.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Rita?
I agree 100%. What Amira said about having a subject line or a specific thing. What I do when I'm hiring for my team, like I said, I'm in Louisiana. And so I always say, if you're interested in this, send me an email with the subject line crawfish. And you wouldn't believe how many people are like inquiring about the position. Like, nope, you didn't follow that one simple thing, and that eliminates 75% of the bots. I do believe that there are bots that find these posts and the people who are full of baloney. So that is a really, really good tip, and it works. And then as far as like interviewing itself, whenever people interview me, because I'm the one that takes all the discovery calls, or however you want to call them, it's really just about like them asking me like, hey, this is what I really would like to have done. And whenever they ask me, how would you do that? Then I'm like, oh, if you hire me to do that, this is exactly what I would do. And it's bam, 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 bam. And this is the way we're going to do it if you hire me. And if that doesn't align with what they're looking for, then it's a no-go. And, everybody parts as friends. And so I just love it whenever someone asks me, if you were hired to do X, Y, and Z, create this funnel, write blog posts, etc., how would you do that? Then that's going to light me up. And I feel like my potential clients can see how excited I get about the possibility of doing whatever project it is. And they can say, yeah, that's not how I want it done. Or, oh, that sounds great. How can I pay you? So,
Yes, immediately. Yes. And that, I think that part right there too is not only like, yes, it's important. And I mean, it depends on the scope of work we're talking about, but for the most part, like there are certain tasks that, yes, there's an SOP for, they're very cut and dried. Here's how we post on social media. That's pretty straightforward. But like what you're talking about, if it's like project-based work, is like finding somebody who's a good fit, but also who shares that vision with you. And I think that is a really incredible gift when it comes to these like collaborative hiring type of relationships. It's really important to not only find somebody you can work with, but find somebody with a vision and the skills to execute that vision. I love it. I love it. Cool. Well, any last thoughts from either of you? Final thoughts on hiring, outsourcing. I don't think if there's anybody watching, we have a few people watching. So if anybody has any questions, if you'd like to do some brain picking, now is your time. Why don't you guys go ahead and tell me once more about your freebies in case anybody missed it earlier. And then if we get any questions, we'll answer those at the end. Go ahead, Amira. You've been leading the way.
Okay, awesome. So as a reminder, the only other thing last words I would add is that remember that you're a CEO, and this took me a while. As I mentioned, I didn't start hiring until my second year, is that when you're a CEO, you're bringing together a team of people that are building the business with you, right? So think of it that way. That will simplify the process. I love the tip that Rita gave about starting small. That's kind of how I started. Exactly. I literally made a list of things that I don't like doing in my business. And I said, you know what, slowly, we're going to outsource all of those things. So focus on, what your expertise is. And now the last thing about the freebie is I have a free legal guide that I would love for you to download if you would like to protect your business legally, which you should. Trust me, that guide is going to be very insightful. It's going to definitely give you a lot of information as well as solutions, because I'm not somebody that is going to come here and just tell you, hey, you need to do this legally. My job, honestly, as a lawyer and an entrepreneur is to also give you the solutions, whether those are my legal templates or working with me one-on-one, whatever works best for you. Always make sure that you're protecting your business legally. And same thing goes for hiring too. If you are the one hiring or if you are the one offering your services, both sides, you should get into the habit of at least using a contract. If you don't like contracts, then do what's called another tip I would give you is do a letter of agreement, which is an informal way of still, being a contract. You send a letter, which kind of just memorializing the important terms that you and your client agreed upon. So it's not a lengthy contract. You can do something like that as well, but just do something in writing so that way you avoid conflicts.
Yes, love it. What about you, Rita?
So for me, I think the biggest thing that people need to really internalize is that you started your business for a reason, and it wasn't to be bogged down by a to-do list that you hate. So I want people to tap back into their passion. Remember that your business is supposed to be fun. If you don't enjoy doing it, then go get a 9-to-5 where you also hate your job, but you don't have to make all these decisions. Okay, so that's number one. And number two, kind of piggybacking off of what Amira said, is list what you just don't like doing and then hire for those things first. Just start small. You don't have to hire somebody. A big misconception in the hiring a team mindset, I guess, is that it's all or nothing. Either you have a team and you're paying somebody for 40 hours a week, or you're doing it all on your own. And there's a whole lot of people who are willing to work as little as an hour a day to clear out your inbox or answer social media messages or whatever it is that you just don't want to do.
Mm-hmm. And you want to tell us again about your
freebie? Sorry. So delegateandaccelerate.com/outsource. And what it is a guide to help you really pinpoint what you don't like doing, what you're good at, what you really want to focus on, why you started your business in the first place. And also there's a part of this worksheet, because it's a worksheet, that helps you figure out how much money it's costing you to try to do all of these things on your own. And some actionable tips to really put that into place. And it's delegateandaccelerate.com/outsource.
I love that. Cool. All right. We did have one question come in from Tally. Tally wants to know where you typically find VAs and contractors as you're starting. And then I know probably maybe both of you have feelings on the the freelancers versus agencies. Like there's like a whole.
That's the whole thing. My advice is to ask for referrals. Who do you know that owns their business, who's happy with their people? And even if their person is busy, they can probably recommend someone who's reliable and trustworthy. There are a lot of us out there who are really good at what we do and we're passionate about what we do. But unfortunately, there's a lot of scammers out there and a lot of people who took some online course on how to do social media that was published 5 years ago, and they call themselves a social media marketing expert or whatever. So just ask for referrals. My second place would be in groups, in Facebook groups, primarily that are focused on entrepreneurs who are in your same niche. So make a post in that group that say, hey, I am your niche here, and I'm looking for someone to help me with what you need help with. Do you have recommendations? So ask like your personal people first. And if you don't get anything there, then ask in the communities that you're already in.
That's a great tip, because one of the clients I'm working with right now ended up being such a good match. Like, we're a really, really good match. And it came from, she was referred to somebody that I work with on a team in another business. And she's like, I have my client load full. Do you have room for another client? And it turned out to be an excellent match. And so, I mean, asking for referrals, even if, like you said, even if that person's team is busy, people know people, and they know who is good to work with.
Okay,
So I think,
there's a whole virtual assistant and service provider community underground that y'all don't even know about. We all talk, we all know who the bad clients are, but there really is, like, there's a whole network, just the same as whatever it is that you do. If you're a mechanic, you know a bunch of mechanics. So the same thing, like, we all know each other.
yeah, cool. What about you, Mira? Do you have any tips on where to find VAs or contractors for people starting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've tried a lot of different ways. And the very first time I remember I hired my virtual assistant was through my own Facebook group, because I do have a nice community of different people that definitely have a connection with me, because they've either purchased from me or they've either downloaded one of my legal templates or freebies or anything. And the bottom line is they know about me. So they're not complete like strangers to me. So that, I think, is important, because my first virtual assistant was somebody that was my customer. She had already purchased my legal bundle to protect her business and even a freelance contract template. So it was pretty cool, because she literally sent me my contract. Which was like, honestly, it's like bright. It just was like the happiest moment.
That is definitely something to remember. Like, I get my own work back to me. Like, it's like you're proud, but you're also excited. Like, they're doing what I taught them.
Yes.
That's awesome.
I was so proud of her, and I was so happy, because I'm like, and she had done it all right, like filled it out my own contract. So first I look at the contract, I'm like, oh, this looks familiar. Then I realized she's my customer, and then she disclosed she's my customer. So it was just a beautiful match, and she was my very first hire. And I like that, because I think that someone who's familiar with your business in any capacity, if they've purchased from you or they've downloaded something from you, then it just makes the whole process easier and builds the connection, and they understand your business. So that's one thing. The other thing is asking for referrals, like you guys mentioned, is definitely has been helpful for me too. Like, I have friends that I would ask them, hey, who are you using for blog post writing? Like, just recently we hired somebody, a new writer, and that was completely through a referral. And then also in other Facebook groups besides my own, I'll post, or there are even Facebook groups that are just for outsourcing that you could join. I've also hired from social media. So like Instagram, somebody would DM me, or I'll DM them, or they'll, there was a Facebook ads manager that I hired just from Instagram. So, and then the last one is that now I also get pitched, like yesterday, even there was an email for a new video editor pitching his services. So, and he looks good. Like, I might be interested in hiring this, bringing on another video editor. So again, there's all these different ways that have worked really well. But again, the key for me is to see that how familiar they are with my business. I just don't hire anyone that's completely clueless, I want them to have some sort of relationship connection, something where I'm not a complete stranger. I think that's important.
I would like to kind of comment on that, Amira. The people that I work best with, and the people who are most happy with me, are people whose businesses, like, I'm already like either their ideal client or I want to be, right?
Yeah.
And so it isn't just, I don't think, do a very good job for somebody who is, say, a roofer or a gardener. Most of my clients are in the health and wellness space, or they're like in the mindset and coaching space, because those are things that I'm personally interested in. And so I'm already, before we even get to work together, I'm already interested in what they do. And so I think that makes a big difference. If it was a fashion designer, I would not be a good fit. Like, I'm not, like, I think I bought this shirt probably 5 years ago. So anyhow, I think that's a really good point that you made when it comes to that.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it kind of goes off what you said earlier, as far as like, would I have something to talk about this person with if I was not hiring them? You know what I mean? Like, would I be able to have that kind of relationship? And it's like, it's easier to do work that you're interested in. So yeah, definitely great tips. Thank you both so much for being here and for going along with our little tech snafu in the beginning.
Always fun.
You know how it goes in business sometimes, but this is Business Power Hour with Faith Mariah. If you are watching and you are interested in getting the replays, make sure to go and opt in. We will also be sending out the links to everybody's freebies in a replay email. So you can also find those on the blog and eventually the YouTube channel once it gets published. So thank you both so much for sharing your expertise. We really, really appreciate it. And for everyone watching online, we will see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, perfect. I didn't want to be like, hey, hang out just in case, but yeah. Okay, cool.